At 48 years old, Rasheeda Frost has finally done what fans never thought she would. She completely dismantled the illusion. After years of whispers, cheating allegations, and cryptic Instagram posts, the truth has erupted like a ticking time bomb, and the entire Love and Hip Hop Atlanta fanbase is reeling. What started as an alleged quiet dinner at Frost Bistro spiraled into an absolute war of words, with Rasheeda reportedly unleashing years of hidden betrayals and unmasking a shocking new chapter in Kirk's infamous baby mama drama. We are talking about jaw-dropping twists, alleged text messages, and a leaked voice note from the baby mama herself that has left Kirk scrambling to control a narrative that is already dead in the water. Insiders claim the confrontation was so explosive that Kirk stormed out, leaving Rasheeda in tears, but instead of staying silent, she is now telling her side raw, emotional, and totally unfiltered. The streets of Atlanta are buzzing with the one question on everyone's lips. What did Rasheeda finally uncover that changed everything? Did she just find the final receipt that ends the Frost legacy for good? Buckle up, because the house of cards is officially collapsing, the internet has completely exploded, and we are breaking down every single unfiltered, scandalous detail. If you thought you knew the limit of Kirk's double life, you are not ready for what came out of the shadows this time. It all started on what was supposed to be a quiet evening at Frost Bistro, the very restaurant Rasheeda and Kirk built from the ground up, brick by brick and vision by vision. But that night, the air was heavy with tension, and something about the way Rasheeda walked and told everyone this wasn't just another business dinner. Her shoulders were squared, her lips were pressed tight, and her eyes gleamed with a strange mix of heartbreak and sheer determination. Kirk, always cool and calculated, was already seated at their usual corner table, casually scrolling through his phone as if everything was normal. He barely looked up when she sat down, completely unaware of the emotional hurricane about to be unleashed across the table. For years, fans had watched Rasheeda keep her cool and play the loyal wife, acting as the silent protector of the Frost brand, while Kirk's cheating scandals played out like a never-ending soap opera on national television. But tonight, Rasheeda wasn't playing any roles, and she didn't come to protect an image. Without even touching her drink, she pulled out her phone and placed it firmly on the table, staring at Kirk in absolute silence until he finally looked up, visibly confused by the sudden tension. When he asked what this was about, Rasheeda's voice was low but sharp as she told him she got a call from the one woman he swore he had blocked forever. Kirk's face instantly tightened, and he swallowed hard, putting his phone down and leaning back into his defensive tone, asking her what she was talking about now. But Rasheeda didn't flinch, tapping her screen to play a voice message that sent a chill through the entire room. A woman's voice crackled through the speaker, saying she didn't want to do this, but Rasheeda deserved to know that Kirk had been seeing her again, and that their son deserved to know who his father really was. The restaurant fell into dead silence. A server froze mid-step, and Kirk's eyes widened as he immediately claimed the message wasn't real or was just something old. Rasheeda cut him off instantly, revealing the message was from yesterday, the exact time Kirk claimed he was at the studio working. She then pulled out a printout of hotel records, timestamps, and even a selfie the woman had taken with Kirk while he was asleep. Insiders say you could literally see Kirk's soul leave his body in that moment, looking like a man who had been shot with the truth, leaving him with absolutely no cover story left to use. He reached for the papers, but Rasheeda slapped his hand away, telling him not to touch them and not to insult her by pretending this was new to him. At this point, Kirk tried to do what he always does, which is twist the narrative and claim the woman was just obsessed and trying to ruin them. But Rasheeda wasn't buying it anymore, her hands trembling while her voice grew stronger than it had ever been. She looked him in the eye and said he didn't just cheat, he lied to her face and brought that woman around again after everything they had already gone through. She reminded him that she built this empire with him and gave up pieces of herself to protect what they had, only for him to keep playing her like a fool. What came next shocked even the staff who thought they had seen everything over the years. Rasheeda stood up and said loud enough for nearly everyone in the bistro to hear that Kirk Frost has an entire second family he has been hiding again. Gasps filled the room. A woman at another table clutched her chest, and a man literally dropped his fork. People online would later dissect the leaked footage frame by frame, pointing out how Kirk slumped, how his face drained of color, and how he looked genuinely terrified for the first time in his life. But Rasheeda wasn't done, pulling out another photo that showed Kirk with a little boy about 5 or 6 years old, at a Chuck E. Cheese in another city just weeks prior. She asked him if he really thought she wasn't going to find out about the trips and the random business meetings, revealing she had hired a private investigator who gathered everything. Kirk stood up to try and save face, telling her she was embarrassing herself by dragging this into public. Rasheeda fired back instantly, saying she was exposing him the exact same way he exposed their family to shame and humiliation for a decade. Suddenly, their eldest son Kai walked in from the kitchen, having heard the entire confrontation. His face was pale, his eyes were wide, and he looked at his father, asking barely above a whisper if it was true. The entire room froze again as Kirk turned speechless, unable to look his own son in the eye. Rasheeda looked at her son, her voice breaking slightly as she confirmed it was true and apologized that he had to hear it this way. Kai looked at his father with a mix of disgust and heartbreak, telling him he taught him about loyalty while keeping another family this whole time, before turning around and walking out. The silence that followed was deafening as Rasheeda slumped into her seat, visibly shaking after years of swallowing her pain to keep the family and business together. Insiders close to the couple say this isn't the first time Rasheeda found out about Kirk's continued ties to his former mistress, but it is the first time she chose to act publicly. Sources say she was just tired of the cycle of lies, apologies, and backroom deals to silence the truth. This time she decided to take her power back completely, looking Kirk in the eye to whisper that she had already filed for divorce. Kirk's face twisted in panic as he begged her to wait, claiming they could fix it, but Rasheeda shook her head and said she couldn't fix a man who doesn't want to be fixed. Word spread like wildfire, and by the time they left the restaurant separately that night, social media was completely ablaze. Fans were in disbelief, blogs were posting leaked clips, and hashtags supporting Rasheeda were trending globally. As Rasheeda drove away staring at the Atlanta skyline, she knew this was about reclaiming her worth, but she had no idea another truth was waiting to rise. Back at home, the atmosphere was electric with tension as Rasheeda sat alone in her dim living room, her mind racing after shattering the illusion of her marriage. But what she didn't know was that the confrontation at the bistro had only scratched the surface of Kirk's secrets. Hours after the public fallout, an anonymous email hit her inbox with the chilling subject line telling her she didn't even know the half of it. Inside was a single photo of Kirk standing outside a suburban house with a completely different woman and a young girl who looked eerily like their son Kai. Rasheeda's heart dropped as she zoomed in, her breath catching in her throat as she realized this looked like another child, another woman, and another betrayal hidden in plain sight. She hit reply with trembling hands, asking who the sender was, but received no response that night, leaving the image permanently burned into her memory. Meanwhile, the internet had turned into a full investigative unit, pulling up old episodes of the show and re-watching every moment of hesitation and deflection in Kirk's eyes over the years. The fanbase was furious but supportive, and while celebrities started chiming in to praise her strength, Kirk went completely silent on all social media platforms. He wasn't just hiding, he was working behind the scenes with a crisis PR team trying to control the narrative before it got even worse. An insider revealed that Kirk wasn't sorry, he was just scrambling, eventually reaching out to Rasheeda's team to beg for a private meeting. She declined twice but agreed the third time on one condition: the cameras had to be there to capture everything raw and unfiltered. They met at a rented studio space, and Rasheeda showed up dressed entirely in black, which fans said looked like she was mourning the death of her marriage. Kirk walked in alone, visibly shaken, and tried to open soft by saying he messed up, but Rasheeda cut him off immediately. She told him he didn't just mess up, he built an entire second life behind her back, choosing to lie after every single chance she gave him. Kirk tried to defend himself, saying she was going off a random picture and didn't know the full story, challenging her to listen to what actually happened. Then Kirk finally broke down, confessing that during an unannounced break in their marriage years ago, he had gotten involved with a woman in Macon, Georgia. He admitted they had a short affair, and she later gave birth to a daughter whom he took a DNA test for last year, confirming she was his. Rasheeda sat in stunned silence, realizing that for years she dealt with the public humiliation of one child, while there was another girl growing up without her connection to the family. She told him he didn't just cheat, he disrespected their entire legacy, because he was too scared of losing his lifestyle to tell the truth. The studio fell completely silent as Kirk looked at her with guilt crawling across his face, whispering that he kept it hidden to protect what they had built. Rasheeda stood up, holding back tears, and told him he was only protecting himself before walking out of the studio, leaving him completely alone as the production crew stopped filming. Days later, Rasheeda went on an Instagram Live to address her fans directly, stating that this wasn't just reality TV, it was her actual reality, and she was officially done living a lie. The comments exploded with support, but amidst the praise, another anonymous comment caught her eye, telling her she still didn't know about what happened in Miami. The anonymous comment hanging on her screen felt like a fresh blow to an already bruised heart, causing Rasheeda to end the live stream abruptly as her mind began to spin. Miami was a city Kirk frequented for music conferences, talent scouting, and regular business trips that she had never questioned before. Now every single one of those trips felt like a potential lie, forcing her to realize that she could no longer sit back and wait for the truth to drip feed into her inbox. The very next morning, before the sun had even cleared the Atlanta horizon, she was on the phone with a high-profile private investigator, demanding a full sweep of Kirk's movements in Florida over the last 3 years. Within 48 hours, the investigator returned with a thick digital file that contained information far more calculated than a simple, impulsive affair. Kirk had not just been staying at hotels. Financial records revealed he had established a completely separate corporate entity under a different name to purchase a luxury condominium in downtown Miami. Even worse, the primary funding for the down payment had been systematically funneled from a joint business account that Rasheeda believed was set aside for upcoming renovations at Frost Bistro. He had literally used the profits of her hard work to fund a sanctuary for a double life, proving that his deception was a structured financial operation. The file also contained surveillance footage of Kirk arriving at the Miami Tower, looking relaxed in casual resort wear, completely different from the stressed husband he portrayed at home. He was accompanied by a 28-year-old local influencer and marketing coordinator, who had been openly listing herself as engaged on her private social media accounts for nearly a year. The investigator uncovered saved video clips from a private birthday celebration held at the condo, showing Kirk laughing, pouring champagne, and holding hands with the young woman while guests toasted to their future. Rasheeda sat in her office staring at the screen, her eyes dry because she had officially passed the point of tears and entered the realm of absolute certainty. She refused to call him, ignoring 6 consecutive phone calls from Kirk, who had clearly caught wine through his legal team that something was moving in the background. When his 7th call flashed on her screen, she simply sent a text message stating that he would be hearing from her retained divorce attorney before the end of the week. That single message apparently broke whatever remaining confidence Kirk had. As mutual acquaintances reported, he began calling production executives, begging them to help him intervene. But Rasheeda was already shifting her strategy, realizing that if her pain was going to be public, her reclaiming of power would be executed on an entirely different scale. Production teams had been desperately pitching a standard reality television confessional, but Rasheeda rejected the traditional format, demanding a solo, uninterrupted special where she controlled the narrative. When she finally stepped in front of the cameras for the exclusive taping, she wore a sharp crimson blazer with her hair pulled back, looking like a woman prepared for battle rather than a victim of circumstance. She looked directly into the lens and explained that her past silence was never a sign of weakness, but rather a commitment to a family structure that Kirk had never actually respected. She laid out the timeline of the Miami condo, the hidden corporate accounts, and the total disregard for the empire they had built together. The public reaction to the broadcast was immediate, shifting the internet discourse from pity to absolute awe at her calculated delivery and composure. While the episode was airing, social media metrics showed a massive surge in engagement, with major public figures and industry peers openly praising her for refusing to protect a toxic situation. Meanwhile, Kirk's professional landscape in Atlanta began to disintegrate rapidly as local business partners scrambled to detach their brands from his suddenly toxic reputation. Event promoters canceled scheduled appearances, marketing agencies pulled their contracts, and Frost Bistro was hit with a wave of negative online reviews that directly targeted his character. To make matters worse for Kirk, the public scrutiny drew the attention of local municipal departments, resulting in an unannounced building inspection at the bistro that uncovered multiple code violations. The city infrastructure that had once protected his businesses seemed to vanish overnight, leaving him exposed to mounting fines and potential closure, without Rasheeda's administrative oversight. Realizing he was losing everything, Kirk attempted to launch a defensive counteroffensive by appearing on several independent urban podcasts, claiming that the financial documents had been misrepresented. He argued that the Miami property was strictly an investment vehicle meant for the family's future portfolio, but the hosts and the audience completely rejected his explanations. During one particularly brutal live broadcast, the podcast comment section became so overwhelmed with criticism that Kirk became visibly agitated, stuttering over his words before abruptly walking off the set. His attempts at damage control were failing because the public had already seen the receipts, and his historical patterns left him with zero credibility. Rasheeda, entirely unbothered by his media tour, focused all her energy on legally separating her name from their shared commercial properties and freezing all joint liquid assets. She ensured that every banking institution was notified of the pending divorce litigation, effectively cutting off Kirk's ability to use marital funds for his ongoing legal defense. The final paperwork was processed with deliberate speed, and Rasheeda's legal team ensured the delivery of the divorce papers was as public as the betrayal itself. A certified process server marched directly into Frost's bistro during the height of the Friday lunch rush, handing the envelope to Kirk in front of a dining room filled with customers. Images of a stunned, pale Kirk holding the legal documents quickly went viral, cementing his transition from a calculated businessman to a public cautionary tale. Rasheeda did not celebrate the moment. Instead, she spent the afternoon with her son Kai, reinforcing that their personal stability was no longer tied to his father's chaotic choices. With the legal ties severed, Rasheeda launched a highly anticipated multi-city speaking tour titled Unmuted, focusing on financial literacy, emotional independence, and rebuilding after systemic betrayal. The tour sold out venues across the country within hours, drawing thousands of women who viewed her not just as a reality television personality, but as a genuine symbol of resilience. She used her platform to educate women on the importance of maintaining independent financial accounts, auditing shared assets, and recognizing the psychological patterns of chronic infidelity. Her message was clear. A woman's worth is never defined by the inability of a partner to appreciate her loyalty. As Rasheeda's profile continued to rise, Kirk retreated almost entirely from the Atlanta social scene, reportedly forced to sell several luxury vehicles to maintain his remaining real estate obligations. Production sources indicated he attempted to pitch a solo redemption reality series to various networks, tentatively titled Starting Over with Kirk, but executives universally declined the project. His brand had become far too liabilities-heavy, and no major network was willing to risk advertiser backlash by providing a platform to a man who had become a cultural symbol of deceit. Even his longtime industry associates, who had previously enabled his behavior, quietly distanced themselves to protect their own commercial interests. The narrative took another dramatic turn when Jasmine, the mother of his first outside child, stepped back into the public eye by filing an amended custody petition in court. Citing Kirk's recent financial instability and erratic public behavior, she demanded full legal custody and a restructuring of child support payments based on his actual audited income. This legal maneuver effectively dismantled the narrative that Kirk had everything under control, revealing to the public that his financial troubles were bleeding into his parental responsibilities. The man who had once walked through Atlanta with absolute arrogance was now facing multiple legal battles on both personal and commercial fronts. In stark contrast, Rasheeda appeared to be physically and emotionally revitalized, with fans frequently noting on social media that she looked remarkably younger and more vibrant since leaving the marriage. Her clothing line expanded into international retail spaces, and her podcast consistently ranked in the top charts for lifestyle and business commentary. She was no longer answering questions about Kirk in interviews, establishing a strict media policy that restricted any conversation regarding her past marriage to preserve the integrity of her new ventures. She had successfully transitioned from a reality star defined by drama into an independent corporate entity. The ultimate validation came during her arrival at the annual BET Awards, where she walked the red carpet completely solo, dressed in a spectacular, structured ivory gown that symbolized a complete rebirth. The venue erupted as photographers shouted her name, capturing a moment of absolute triumph that few public breakups ever achieve. When a reporter asked her what advice she would give to individuals currently sitting in the shadows of a painful relationship, She smiled calmly and stated that heartbreak should never be treated as a permanent destination. She explained that pain can either break a person down or serve as the exact raw material needed to construct a completely unshakable future. Back in Atlanta, the remnants of Kirk's influence continued to fade as rumors circulated that he was deeply indebted to private lenders who had helped fund his failed ventures. His brother reportedly attempted to deliver a final, confidential message to Rasheeda during a private family gathering, but her security team politely but firmly turned him away at the entrance. She had drawn an absolute boundary, recognizing that allowing any communication from his camp would only serve to validate a cycle she had spent a decade breaking free from. Her peace was no longer up for negotiation, and she had the financial and legal resources to enforce that reality permanently. On her 49th birthday, her sons organized an intimate celebration at a private estate, surrounded by genuine friends, extended family, and professionals who had supported her transition. The atmosphere was light, completely devoid of the lingering anxiety that had characterized her personal life for the past 15 years. Her son Kai stood up to deliver a toast, his voice filled with genuine emotion as he thanked his mother for demonstrating what authentic strength and self-respect looked like in practice. He noted that she didn't just survive a storm. She showed everyone around her how to rebuild an entirely new kingdom from the wreckage. The applause inside the room echoed long after Kai finished his toast, filling the space with a warmth that Rasheeda had not experienced in a very long time. For years, her birthdays had been overshadowed by the lingering anxiety of what Kirk might be doing behind her back, or which blogger was about to drop another piece of devastating news. But tonight, surrounded by the people who truly valued her existence, she finally felt a profound sense of closure that no court document could ever fully provide. She looked around at the smiling faces of her true friends and family, realizing that the real victory wasn't just about exposing the truth, but about creating a life where the lies no longer had any power over her. As the evening wound down and the guests began to depart, Rasheeda sat quietly on the outdoor terrace, watching the city lights of Atlanta flicker in the distance. The journey had been incredibly brutal, forcing her to confront the absolute worst aspects of a man she had loved and protected for nearly 2 decades. Yet, as she took a deep breath of the cool night air, she felt an overwhelming lightness in her chest because the heavy burden of keeping up appearances was permanently gone. She was no longer the woman who had to smile for the cameras, while her heart was breaking into a million pieces behind closed doors. The next morning, the media machine continued to churn, but the narrative had shifted entirely away from the sordid details of Kirk's infidelities and toward Rasheeda's incredible business trajectory. Financial analysts and entertainment commentators were openly discussing her branding strategy, highlighting how she had successfully separated her personal identity from a toxic partnership without losing her commercial appeal. Major corporate sponsors were now reaching out to her management team, eager to align their brands with a woman who represented absolute resilience, independence, and authentic female empowerment. Meanwhile, Kirk's financial reality was becoming increasingly dire as court proceedings began to expose the true depths of his fiscal mismanagement during the marriage. Legal discovery documents revealed that he had not only mismanaged joint funds for the Miami real estate venture, but he had also accumulated significant tax liabilities that he had hidden from Rasheeda. Her legal team worked tirelessly to ensure that these debts were allocated solely to Kirk, presenting meticulous accounting records that proved she had no knowledge or involvement in his unauthorized financial activities. Faced with mounting pressure from the courts and the public, Kirk made one final desperate attempt to salvage his rapidly deteriorating public image by scheduling a pay-per-view live stream interview. He promised his remaining followers that he would reveal the ultimate context behind the receipts, claiming that he had been the victim of a highly coordinated smear campaign designed to destroy his legacy. The announcement was met with widespread skepticism, with fans and critics alike calling it a transparent attempt to generate fast revenue to cover his escalating legal expenses and child support demands. When the live stream event finally took place, it quickly degenerated into a complete disaster as Kirk appeared visibly unkempt, defensive, and thoroughly unprepared for the sharp questions posed by the independent journalist he had hired. Every time he attempted to explain away a specific text message, hotel receipt, or corporate transfer, the interviewer presented matching documentation that completely invalidated his claims. The viewership numbers dropped significantly halfway through the broadcast, and the comment feed was so overwhelmingly negative that the moderation team was forced to disable it entirely before the interview concluded. The complete failure of the live stream marked the absolute end of Kirk's mainstream media relevance in Atlanta, solidifying his status as a cautionary tale within the entertainment industry. Major production companies officially blacklisted him from future projects, and local venue owners refused to lease space to any event that featured his name on the promotional materials. The empire he had attempted to build on a foundation of deception had completely disintegrated, leaving him isolated from the very social and professional circles he had once dominated with absolute arrogance. In stark contrast, Rasheeda's multi-city speaking tour was expanding into international territories, with dates being added in London, Toronto, and several Caribbean markets due to unprecedented ticket demand. She was invited to deliver keynote addresses at major business conferences, where she spoke passionately about the critical importance of financial autonomy for women navigating corporate and personal partnerships. Her memoir, which detailed her journey of reclaiming her voice, officially hit the bestseller lists within the first week of its commercial release, further cementing her transition into a true cultural icon. As her professional success reached new heights, Rasheeda remained deeply committed to ensuring that her sons were shielded from any remaining fallout from their father's public disgrace. She invested a significant portion of her recent earnings into a private trust fund for Kai and his siblings, ensuring that their educational and entrepreneurial futures were fully secured independent of any television contracts. She wanted to make absolutely certain that the legacy her children inherited was one of hard work, integrity, and absolute self-respect, rather than the chaotic history of the Frost name. Months later, the final judicial decrees regarding the division of the marital estate were officially signed by the presiding judge, bringing a permanent legal end to the relationship. Rasheeda retained full ownership of the flagship retail locations, the rights to her extensive fashion brand, and the primary residential property, while Kirk was ordered to liquidate his remaining commercial shares to satisfy outstanding liabilities. When her attorney called to confirm that the paperwork had been filed at the courthouse, Rasheeda simply smiled, thanked her legal team, and immediately went back to reviewing the architectural designs for her upcoming international store launch. The story of Rasheeda Frost had officially transcended the boundaries of standard reality television drama, turning into a powerful case study on the importance of self-worth and strategic patience. She had shown millions of viewers that it is never too late to redraw your boundaries, demand absolute transparency, and walk away from any situation that requires you to diminish your own value. The whispers, the scandals, and the endless cycles of betrayal were all part of the past, completely buried beneath the weight of her current achievements and unshakable peace of mind. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Rasheeda stood on the balcony of her newly renovated home, looking out at the beautiful Georgia landscape as the sun began to set. She felt a deep, unshakable sense of gratitude for the strength she had discovered within herself during the darkest moments of the entire ordeal. The journey had stripped away the illusions, the false friends, and the toxic partnerships, leaving her with a clear vision of exactly who she was and what she was truly capable of achieving on her own terms. So there you have it, the absolute and final dismantling of a legacy built on secrets, and the spectacular rise of a woman who chose her own truth over a convenient lie. At 48 years old, Rasheeda Frost didn't just survive an emotional hurricane. She successfully redrew her entire destiny in front of the whole world, proving that true power comes from within. The house of cards has officially collapsed into the dust. The receipts have been permanently recorded, and the final chapter of this historic saga has officially drawn to a complete close. Now we really want to hear from you and get your final thoughts on this incredible transformation. Do you believe that Rasheeda's methodical public approach to reclaiming her narrative was the ultimate way to handle a decade of systemic betrayal? How do you think Kirk's complete public and financial downfall will impact the future landscape of reality television culture? And most importantly, what major lessons did you take away from Rasheeda's journey regarding personal value, financial independence, and knowing exactly when to walk away from chaos? Make sure you drop your detailed thoughts, theories, and support messages in the comments section below, so we can keep this massive conversation moving forward. If you found inspiration in Rasheeda's incredible strength and unshakable grace throughout this entire ordeal, make sure you hit that like button right now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell icon. so you are always the very first to get the most explosive updates, investigative deep dives, and breaking truths from across the industry. Thank you so much for watching. Keep your standards high, your circle completely transparent, and we will see you in the next one. So there you have it. The absolute undeniable proof that no matter how long a web of lies is spun, the truth will always find its way to the surface. At 48 years old, Rasheeda Frost didn't just walk away from a toxic marriage. She completely reclaimed her power, her financial freedom, and her dignity on a global stage, leaving Kirk to pick up the pieces of a ruined reputation. But now we want to hear from you. Do you think Rasheeda handled this public exposure perfectly? Or did she wait too long to finally drop the hammer on Kirk? Is there any possible way for Kirk to ever bounce back from this level of financial and social disgrace? Or has he officially burned his final bridge in Atlanta? And what would you have done if you found those same shocking receipts in your partner's phone? Let's get the conversation started. So drop your wildest theories and honest thoughts in the comments below. If you stand with Rasheeda and love seeing a boss woman win, make sure to hit that like button right now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and smash that notification bell icon, so you never miss another explosive celebrity breakdown or industry investigation. Thank you for tuning in. Keep your inner circle tight, protect your peace at all costs, and we will definitely see you in the next one.